Hey guys, welcome back. So I know that this has been long awaited, but today I am sharing with you guys what I did for my bridal wedding makeup. I actually have my bouquet here. This bouquet inspired this eyeshadow look, just like a really pretty blush bridal makeup. This is going to be a in-depth step-by-step wedding makeup tutorial. I'm just going to share my best tips on how to get your makeup to last all day and look good in pictures. So yeah, if you would like to see how to do this, then let's go ahead and jump into the tutorial. I have done some of my friends' bridal makeup as well. I'm definitely not a professional, but as you guys know, like I've been doing makeup for many years here on YouTube. So I loved the way that my makeup looked for my wedding and I got so many compliments on it. So yeah, we're just gonna jump into this, and I wore my earrings that I wore at my wedding. I just thought it would be festive to throw those on, and I wore this bracelet. These earrings I have had for years. I think I got them at like Dillard's, so I know I can't link these. They're basically like vintage at this point. I would recommend that for your wedding makeup that you do practice it like at least 3 or 4 times before your wedding. That is what I did, just so that you have it down pat and it's like second nature for you to do it, because the day of your wedding there are going to be things that's going to happen, and if you're doing your wedding makeup yourself, you just don't want to feel overwhelmed. I mean, for me, I found it very calming because I like to do my own makeup, but I definitely recommend, you know, testing some things out, figuring out what you like best, what looks best, and getting it down pat before the day of your wedding. The first thing that you're gonna wanna do is go ahead and do your skin prep 30 minutes to like 45 to 30 minutes before you're gonna sit down to do your makeup, just so your face moisturizer, and if you're using sunscreen, any kind of skincare that you're using, so it has time to soak into the skin. The foundation that I used for my wedding was a drugstore foundation, actually. I used the Revlon ColorStay Longwear Makeup, the combination oily skin. This is my go-to foundation, not something that's going to be overly dewy, because that is the thing with wedding makeup. You don't want your skin to look too shiny, because in pictures it's just not going to look very good. So you don't want something that's going to look so matte that's going to look drying, but you do want something that's a little bit more on the matte side. But yeah, Revlon ColorStay lasts through anything, through humidity, sweating, like it looks good and lasts. So I highly recommend this foundation. You guys know I sing the praises of this. So the shade that I used in this was 150 Buff, which is more of like my when I start losing my tan shade. So I just put some on the back of my hand, and then I like to use a dampen makeup sponge. So for the day of my wedding I used my Wet n Wild makeup sponge, but I recently bought these Paw Paw makeup sponges off of Amazon, and I really like them. They're very similar to the Wet n Wild ones, so you know, just whatever makeup applying thing that you like to use. But I do find with Revlon ColorStay it is good to apply it with a makeup sponge, just because it's going to thin it out, because this is a very full coverage foundation. So, and it can be slightly difficult to work with, so you definitely want to use, you know, something like a makeup sponge to just help make the application a bit easier. So this is just a nice skin finish. I know that they market it as a matte foundation, but it's definitely not overly matte. It's just a good just skin finish. So, you know, definitely take your time with blending in your foundation and just getting everything looking nice and well blended. It's like for my wedding I actually did do like a half up half down hairstyle. My hairstylist came over to the house and did my hair, and she did such a beautiful job. I'll have to like insert some pictures so you can see my hair. I loved my hair. I put like extensions in and everything, so it was just such a beautiful hairstyle. The concealer that I used the day of my wedding was Tarte Shape Tape. This is a very full coverage, long wearing concealer, so I highly recommend this. You know, if you're trying to cover up any dark under eye circles, this is gonna last. And the shade that I use in this is in the shade Light. So I just start out with a little bit of it here first. I'll take my ring finger and just lightly pat that out this way. And then I'll usually take just like a little bit more of this out here in this area. And I'll also kind of pat that in to meet the other concealer and also take it out this way. And I'll show you my little trick to, you know, brighten this area up more without adding more concealer to your under eye area. Then I'll go back with my little sponge. Just make sure I don't have any little fingerprints. Make sure everything's blended well. So if you want to highlight this area even more, what I do is I'll go in with the concealer and apply it right underneath the under eye like this and pull it up that way. Go back with the sponge. And this is just going to highlight and lift the eye upward without adding extra concealer to your under eye area. So I hope you can see the difference between this eye and this one, like how much more lifted and more bright that makes your under eye look. And like I said, Tarte Shape Tape lasts, it does not crease. So I love this concealer. It's one of my all-time favorites. And then I just took a little bit more concealer up on the eyelid. Got it here in this little shadowy pocket. Just use the little pointy side of the sponge. And a little bit of this concealer goes such a long way. Just gonna do the same thing over here. But you know, if you're really confused as to like what concealer shade you need or foundation, I definitely recommend going to like Sephora or even Ulta and getting color matched to a foundation there. I mean, I know that like my foundation recommendation is a drugstore recommendation, so you know, it's not like you can really go to those places and get color matched. But I mean, sometimes it is helpful to go to a makeup counter like MAC as well and just find out like what your undertone is, so it can help you kind of figure out what foundation shade to get. You know, if you're getting a drugstore foundation like Revlon ColorStay. I know that part can be a tad bit tricky, so that's why probably like a month or so before, maybe even 2 months before your wedding, try to figure out like what foundation and concealer shades that you need, like what your skin undertone is, so that'll be easier for you to know like what foundation and concealer is going to, like, undertones and shades are gonna look best for you. And then to set everything, I think the day of my wedding I actually used the Charlotte Tilbury airbrush, like the flawless airbrushed setting powder, but I dropped this and it shattered, so I cannot use it in this video. But this powder is really good. But honestly, if you want a pretty good like drugstore alternative, the Rimmel Stay Matte powder is so good. I mean, I feel like it's pretty much on par with that with the Charlotte Tilbury one. I know that some people would totally disagree with me on that, but this powder is very good. And I know it sounds really scary because it says Stay Matte, so it sounds like it might make your face look kind of cakey or dried out, but it really doesn't. It's a very lightly milled pressed powder. So I'm just using the e.l.f. flat top brush and I just barely tap my brush in there. Got like some weird fuzzy on my face here. And I'm just going to pat that into the skin. Pat it here over my nose. And this powder is going to just make your foundation look just like a soft airbrushed finish. And I'll even take a little triangle powder poof and get a little bit of that on there and just lightly tap that underneath the eye. You don't need much to set the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer because it does pretty much set on its own. And then I do recommend to put like a lip conditioner on just like while you're doing like the rest of your makeup. And honestly, you know what? I totally already screwed this up. I should have done my eyeshadow before I did my foundation and complexion things, because the day of my wedding, that's what I did. I'll just kind of show you some techniques that you can do to minimize glitter fallout if you've accidentally forgotten, like I did, and applied your complexion products before your eyeshadow. But I would recommend to do that, your eyeshadow first, then your foundation and concealer. Then for brows, I just recommend doing like whatever your normal brow routine is, or just doing them however you feel they look their best. I wouldn't do anything weird or different with your brows the day of your wedding, because you want to feel like yourself, but just a little bit more glam. So I'm just going to kind of speed through this part, but I'm just going to be using the NYX Micro Brow. I'm just using shade black, and then I'm going to go over top of my brows to set them in place with the e.l.f. Brow Wow in the shade Deep Brown. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the eyeshadow portion, and you want to make sure that you prime your eyelids really good before applying your eyeshadow. The two eyeshadow primers that I recommend is the Urban Decay Original Eyeshadow Primer Potion if you want like a high-end one, or if you want a drugstore option, the Milani Eyeshadow Primer is my all-time favorite. So I actually don't have the Milani Eyeshadow Primer, so I'm going to be using this Wet n Wild Eyeshadow Primer. This one is good, but the Milani one will last... keep your eyeshadow lasting all day without creasing. This one can crease a little bit. So I just recommend the Milani one over this one, or like I said, the Urban Decay. So I'm just gonna blend this all over the eyelid. And like the day of my wedding, I used the Milani eyeshadow primer. So like a little bit of this stuff actually goes a long way. So you want to put that all over your whole entire eyelid, and that's gonna just give your eyeshadow something to stick to and also keep your eyeshadow from creasing. So eyeshadow primer is an absolute must. Then once I apply that, I let that dry down. I usually give it like a minute or so to dry down, because you don't want to go in with it freshly applied, because it's going to be wet and it's going to grip to your eyeshadow and make it, like, I mean, I know that's the purpose of eyeshadow, is to have, or purpose of an eyeshadow primer, to give your eyeshadow something to grip onto, but you don't want it to be freshly wet because it's going to be hard to blend and your eyeshadow can get patchy. I used the Natasha Denona Retro Palette for my wedding eyeshadow, and I think this palette is so pretty if you want like a blush eyeshadow look for a bridal makeup. And since I got married in the fall, in October, I wanted something a little bit darker, a little bit more intense, but nothing too over the top. And honestly, with this palette, you can create some more subtle looks. So like if the look I'm doing today is too intense, you know, you could use some of the other shadows and make it less intense, but I'm going to show you kind of different layers to this look, so you could stop and not go as smoky as I'm going to make it. First, I'm just going to go in with this blending brush, and I got this out of an Amazon brush set, so I'll have that set linked down below. I'm going to be using a couple of those brushes today to do this eyeshadow, to do this bridal eyeshadow look. So first I went in the crease with the shade here in Go Go, and I took that shade and put that, I'm gonna kind of dab some of it off a little bit. And I started it here in like the outer V area and slowly brought it in. Just warming the crease up here. A little bit more of this and kind of blended it here in the outer V, just using little circular motions. Oh, I'm sorry, I might have been completely blocking you guys. I hope I wasn't. I just took that shade and blended it there on the lower lash line like that. So if you wanted a softer look, you could stop here and put the lid shade on and then do like your brow bone highlight, inner corner highlight, and just have a very soft bridal makeup look. But like I said, I did mine a bit more smoky. I think this is called Amara, if I'm pronouncing that right. I took some of this shade on the Sigma E25 blending, and I just placed it like right here. You're just gonna do little circular motions and slowly blend it in the outer V, just lightly. This is just going to kind of deepen the outer V area up. Always make sure you tap off your brush really good, so you can just kind of dab it there. And if you feel like you've got too much, just go back with the blending brush and just blend around the edges of that. But this Natasha Denona Retro Palette is so beautiful and such a classic. And then I'm getting a little bit more of Amara on the Sigma Pencil E30. Just barely tap the brush in there. Tapped off the excess, and then I'm going to slightly blend that here on like this last part of the lower lash line, connecting it up with that darker shade. Well, it's not really darker, but with the same shade. Now I'm going to do those same techniques on this other eye, and then I'll come back and we'll go ahead and put the lid shade on. And then for the brow bone highlights, I went in with Mod, which is just like this matte white color. And I'm just using an angled brush. This is from e.l.f. Just brushing that here on the brow bone to highlight. For the lid shade, this is such a pretty bridal color, but this shade in Psychedelic, it might be kind of hard to see on camera there, but it is so glittery and sparkly. So this is a shade you got to be a little careful with applying. If you know you have issues with glittery eyeshadows falling on your face, I recommend using a product like the NYX Glitter Glue to really lock it on. Once I get this shadow on my lid, I don't usually have issues with the glitter falling on my face, or it's nothing that I really notice too much. So, you know, personal preference on what you want to do there. But this one technique that I'm going to share with you guys. So first you want to get this shadow on a brush. This is just a flat concealer brush from that Amazon brush set. Just pack it on there, tap off the excess. So you're just going to get it on the brush. It's just going to look something like this. And then you're going to take a setting spray, and I'm using MAC Fix Plus. You're just going to mist it. This is going to help the eyeshadow to stick to the brush and not fall on your face. And then you're just going to just like pat it on the eyelid there. And I do really like this brush because it comes to a point. And this is one of those types of shadows that you have to kind of build it up a little bit. Like, it applies really nicely with your finger, but if you were going to apply it with your finger, I do recommend to do your eyeshadow first, just in case if there is any fallout on the face, you can clean it up. But I just slowly start building it up. And once you've gotten the brush wet, you don't necessarily need to spray it again with makeup setting spray unless it starts to feel a bit dried out. Like, you don't want it like dripping wet or anything like that. Just enough to get the eyeshadow a little wet so that the glitter will stick to the brush. But like, look at how pretty sparkly that shadow is. I just think that's a beautiful bridal eyeshadow color. And like, it has glitter in it, but it's not like over the top crazy glitter. Like, it just catches the light and just looks sparkly and pretty. Okay, and then for the inner corner of the eye, I'm just using the Wet n Wild Color Icon palette and this shimmery cream shade. Using a shimmery cream like this in the inner corner is going to just open up the eye a little bit more. I'll show you here just in a second once I get this applied. Just applying it with that same e.l.f. angled brush. So see how that kind of brightens the eye just ever so slightly with that shimmery inner corner. And then another thing that's going to just like open the eyes up and make them look even more bright is if you go in with like a flesh toned eyeliner. This is kind of just like a soft pink. And that just opens the eyes up even more. Gives you like more of that doe eye look. I'm using the Wet n Wild Breakup Proof Liquid Liner. I know I did just like nothing too thick or crazy. Just something to like hide the lashes. Because I'm going to go over top of this with an eyeshadow and kind of smoke it out. So I just put like a little bit of that black liner right at the lash line. Let that dry down, and then I'm going to go over top of it with a brown eyeshadow. I'm just taking an angled brush. This is from Essence, and getting the shade in a part on this angled liner brush. Make sure you tap the excess off on this and just go on top of the liner there. I do kind of pull it up a little bit just to kind of make it a little bit more of like a cat eye. So if you ever want just like a soft liner look, just go in with your liquid liner first and then go over top of that with an eyeshadow, and it's going to help to soften everything and make things not look as harsh. And then I take just a little bit of what's left on this angled brush and just kind of run it here on the lower lash line just slightly. But I'm pretty sure like the day of my wedding, I actually made this a little darker out there. So I grabbed a little bit more of the shade in Rebellion. Just a little bit of it on this same Sigma E25 blending and just lightly stamped it right out here. And like I said, like if you didn't want to go this dark in the outer V, you could always stop with like the previous shade. Then for my lashes, I actually went in with these Ardell Baby Wispies, or the Baby Demi Wispies. See, I just cut them in half here, and I actually used the last half of the lash here on the outer corner of my eye. Okay, so I've got the lashes trimmed up. You know what? I might actually do the lashes at the ends because I am gonna set my face with a makeup setting spray. See, I feel like whenever I'm doing a step-by-step tutorial for you guys, sometimes I just go on like auto palette. The day of my wedding, I did actually do a little bit of contouring, and I used this LA Girl Just Blushing blush in Just Because. So I'm just using the Real Techniques 200 brush. Just gonna tap some of that off on the back of my hand just so it's not applied too intensely. It's always best to start out with a little bit, build it up. So honestly, I mean, I just did like light contouring, and then I went in with my bronzer. Okay, and then for my bronzer, I just used a little bit of the Milani Silky Matte. So I'm just lightly blending that Milani Silky Matte bronzer with this Sigma F30 large powder brush. Taking it up around the hairline. Just like in the areas where your face would be naturally tanned by the sun. And the blush that I felt like paired so nice with this eye look and just gave my cheeks a nice rosy flush. The Tarte Amazonian Clay Blush in Natural Beauty is super pretty for just a nice flushed cheek. And this has been a favorite blush of mine for years and years, and it lasts on the cheeks for a long time, especially for being like a powder blush. So I'm using the Morphe M241 to apply this. So if you ever get too much on your brush, just tap it off on the back of your hand there. And just like with anything, it's best to apply a little bit and then just slowly build it up. But see how that just pairs so nice with the eyes. It's a really pretty berry red blush color, which is completely matte. And then if you ever apply too much blush, just go back with your makeup sponge and just lightly tap. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the lips before I do the makeup setting spray and finish out the eyes. So I'm just going to take off the lip conditioner. I just like to use a cotton swab because you can really shape out your lip shape. The lip color that I use is actually no longer made, but I do have an alternative to it that is basically the same color. It's just slightly a little bit darker, but I used one of the Maybelline Superstay Vinyl Inks in the color Awestruck. So I don't know, maybe some of you guys have this in your collection, but I love the formula of these vinyl inks because they last for a long time and they are moisturizing. So I know I was saying to not use like shiny things. I mean, I know that we have like the shiny eyelid, which is, you know, most bridal makeup you want at least a shimmer on the lid. With the lips, I tried this look with a matte lip, and just me personally, I don't really like matte lips. Like sometimes I do, but like for my wedding makeup, I don't know, like it just didn't look right with this look. So, you know, if you like matte lips, I would say go for that. But if you want like a shiny lip, these Maybelline Vinyl Inks are really nice. So this, like I said, this is in the color in Awestruck. But I think that this is such a pretty bridal color, so I'm so sad they don't make this anymore. Okay, so I swatched these two so you could see how similar they are on the back of my hand. But this is my alternative shade to Awestruck. This is in the shade Witty, which is pretty similar. It might be like slightly more cool toned or something, but you know, if you want a similar shade, and I'll put this on top so you can kind of see, like it might be slightly a bit more cool toned, but it's practically the same color. So even though they don't make Awestruck, just get the shade in Witty. And I also think that is a beautiful bridal shade because it's basically the same color. And I do recommend a makeup setting spray to ensure that your makeup is going to last all day, all night. And I used the Urban Decay All Nighter Makeup Setting Spray, which is my go-to holy grail makeup setting spray. So this will tone down the powders just a little bit and add a little bit of a glow as well, but it won't look too overly like glowy or shiny. So yeah, makeup setting sprays just help your makeup to last, and also just helps to make everything look a little bit more natural and not super powdery. Like it tones down the powders. I mean, some other good drugstore options, the Milani Make It Last and the LA Girl setting spray. Those are both really great alternatives to this Urban Decay one if you don't want to spend the money on it. Okay, so now we're going to move on to doing the false lashes. So you're just going to want to first curl up your natural lashes just a little bit. And then if you think you might cry, apply some waterproof mascara. I just used the Maybelline Lash Sensational, and I'm just gonna apply a light coat of this at first, and then once I get the lashes on, I will add a little bit more mascara. I just find this to most of the times be the easiest way to do false lashes. So you're just gonna take your tweezers, get the lashes in there. And then I use the Duo Lash Adhesive Brush On Glue. This is in the dark. And then I always feel like this part is so hard for me to show you on camera what I'm doing. But you just want to brush some of that glue on the edge of the lash band there. So sometimes I'll just paint a little bit of it, let it dry for a second, and then like add a little bit more if I want it to be super tacky. So I just get, you know, a little bit of lash glue on, let it dry for like a minute or so I can get a little bit tacky. And then just place it there. And then just stick it down. I will say doing false lashes, it does take practice. So if you are not, you know, familiar with doing lashes, definitely practice these several times before your wedding. Because even me, the day of my wedding, I was like struggling with the false lashes for whatever reason that day. You know, it's always like one of those things whenever you're just doing something for fun and you're not putting a lot of work into it, the lashes just go on super easy. But then when you need them to work correctly, that's usually when you struggle. Or I'm going to show you how to blend your natural lashes with the false lashes. So just go back with the mascara. Especially focus it like at the front part of the lashes, since there's no false lashes at that place, just to kind of blend. But like as you can see with these false lashes, like it just adds a little bit of volume to the outer corner, but at the same time it doesn't look too much or too over the top, which I think is really pretty for like bridal lashes. And then I did skip putting mascara on my lower lash lines that day just to make sure I didn't have any smudging. Plus I just wanted my eyes to look like more lifted. So sometimes when you put mascara on your lower lashes, it can kind of drag, you know, your eyes down. But this is my final look. And I have my flowers here because I just used like fake flowers. So these flowers are what inspired this makeup look, but try to put these close so we can get like some good shots. I don't know how to do this in the video, but looking down so you can see the eyeshadow. But I hope that you guys found this helpful or just found it entertaining to see what my makeup look was for my wedding day. If you did enjoy this, give this video a thumbs up. And if you are new, please subscribe. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye-bye.